Visionnez l'événement en français. Activez les sous-titres dans les paramètres de la vidéo. Pour changer la langue de sous-titrage, sélectionnez Paramètres, sous-titres français.
Hello everyone, my name is Kathy Doe and I'm so excited to be here today. I'm a grade 9 student from Toronto and I am both an innovator and entrepreneur myself. I'm extremely passionate about the environment and I've created 2 projects supporting the environment. And I'm very excited to be moderating the session and bring your questions to our 3 awesome panelists who I will invite to introduce themselves. This session is a straight Q&A format, so I invite you to submit your questions in the Q&A box. We have great attendance today, so instead of posting your questions live, we'll be choosing some for me to ask our panelists. And without further ado, here are our awesome panelists. Our first panelist is Mayan Ziv, an activist, a photographer, and an entrepreneur based in Toronto. Mayan, can you share a bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Kathy, for the intro. I'm so excited to be here to celebrate Take Our Kids to Work Day. My name is Mayan Ziv. I'm the founder and CEO of Access Now, a company that I started in university. And I'm really just excited to jump into the questions. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And next up, welcome Michael Pieces Prosterman. He's got a lot of jobs, including B-Boy, university instructor, and certified coach who specializes in scaling startups, team culture, fundraising, and succession. He is also a best-selling author with a book just released called Building Unity, Leading a Nonprofit from Spark to Succession. Over to you to tell us more about what you do, Mike.
Thanks for the intro, and yes, very excited to be here with all of you today. My name is Mike Prosterman. I'm a b-boy, breakdancer, as some people call it. I started a charity called Unity that we scaled up over 15 years all across Canada using hip hop to improve youth mental health. Mental health has been a big part of my personal journey, and I wanted to just do something about creating awareness and outlets for young people across Canada, and took the outlet that helped me so much and shared it with other young people. And more recently, as you said, I've shifted to a more independent career and recently wrote this new book about building the organization Unity from the ground up over those 15 years. So in a bit of a career transition right now.
Thank you. And finally, Margaret Glover Campbell is joining us from Calgary, Alberta. Margaret is Chief Operating Officer of a company called the Virtual Gurus and a board chair for SheGeek, a nonprofit empowering women to succeed in the tech sector. Here she is to tell us more about her story.
Thanks, Kathy. So happy to be here this morning, everybody. As Kathy said, I am the COO of Virtual Gurus. It is a small tech startup here in Calgary. I'm a bit of a tech startup junkie. I've been growing companies for the past 20 years. My career has kind of taken a bunch of twists and turns, starting out in advertising some 30 years ago, and morphing into building technology companies, as well as helping kids in K-12 understand the power of STEM careers. So happy to be chatting with y'all today.
Thank you, Margaret. Thanks, everyone, for your great questions in the Q&A. Now let's spend the next 10 minutes diving into some of these questions. Our first question is for Mayan. Does your work as a photographer, activist, and CEO combine in what you do?
Yeah, I would say that for me, I kind of started my career in high school accidentally. I was working as a photographer, just like taking headshots of my friends. We were studying theater and a lot of my friends needed headshots, so I would charge them $20 and start my career that way. And then when I graduated, I continued to do that out of high school and into university. I was working as a photographer, and I kept building up my portfolio, getting more serious jobs. And I found that the thing that really excited me the most of the work that I was doing was that because I am someone with a disability, I was really, really excited about carving out a new path. You know, in the photography industry where I started, people really didn't look like me. There weren't a lot of women photographers that I was meeting, and there definitely weren't any photographers with disabilities. And I realized that there were a lot of assumptions and barriers in the industry, and that's really where my activism and my advocacy started. So from there, you know, I just felt like I had a voice that could contribute to making change in the world and creating more inclusion for people with disabilities like myself. And that's what eventually led to the development of Access Now, where I realized now that I have this kind of activism streak in me, how can I now use that to encourage other people to do the same thing, raise their voices, and create more awareness about the importance of accessibility?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayan. The next question is for Margaret. Why do you love tech so much?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, there is no single day that is different from another. Sometimes there's no hour that's the same as another. I should say the same as another. I'm always exploring and doing new things. And really the ability to build entire industries that don't exist yet is just fun. Right, I've been able to do that 3 times now in my career, be at the very leading edge of industries that didn't exist, including, you know, creating mobile apps before there was actually an iPhone. So, which I know sounds a little odd, but that's kind of what happened 14 years ago. So.
Oh, thank you, Margaret. Our next question is for Mike. How did you decide to make all the career changes you did?
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. And I really haven't made that many career changes, to be honest. I've really only been in one career most of my entire life, which was Unity, which was an organization I founded back in high school and grew over 15 years. And it was really difficult to make the leap to leave that organization that I was part of founding, but I realized I needed to take a step back so that I could take care of my own mental health, as well as support another person to take on a new opportunity by, you know, creating that space. You know, there's a lot of people who stay in organizations for a very long time, and I decided I wanted to learn something new, contribute in different ways. So recently I decided to write the book, and I also started my own consulting company to support nonprofits to help them grow and thrive in the community. So instead of being on the top of an organization, which is a very challenging and sometimes unsustainable place to be on a human level, I found that I wanted to play from a different angle and learn something new. So after 15 years, I stepped away, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And Unity still continues to this day without me, which is a really beautiful thing.
Thank you, Mike. And this question is for all of our panelists. What advice would you give your grade 9 self?
I can start. I think, you know, when I was in grade 9, I had just started, I moved from a really small school to a really big high school. So I went from knowing my classmates every year, we were like 30 people that grew up together, to like 2,000 students. And I remember my experience, you know, one of the toughest things that everybody has to do in high school is kind of like figure out what you care about and find some comfort in your own skin. And I think, you know, the things that brought me the most joy in high school or the elements that I loved. So I loved theater and I loved art, and I found passion there. And so I think, you know, there's so many pressures or stresses about what to do and what to focus on and how to be successful and what will my job maybe be. But I think focusing on what you're passionate about or trying things that bring you joy and just exploring that space, I think if you follow that passion, it could lead to some really beautiful things. And I think that that would be the advice that I would give myself in grade 9. Just keep going with what you love and don't worry too much about what comes from that.
I can jump in next. That's really awesome, Mayan. I'm probably the furthest away from grade 9 of any of this group, but you know, I remember driving. I lived in a small village in Nova Scotia, and I remember driving into Halifax with my dad and talking about what I was going to do in university and starting to get that plan in place. And we were a fairly political family, and so he suggested political science. And I remember just having this really adverse reaction to the word science in general, right? That I didn't want anything to do with science. That was a bad thing for me and my psyche. And, you know, fast forward all these years, and had I known the path that science could take me from a technology and engineering perspective, that I had no idea about back in grade 9, my career path would probably still have ended up in the same place, but how I got here would have been different. And so I would just say to my grade 9 self, you know, be open. Don't be so kind of closed off to possibilities. Really explore what's out there and what's possible. There are so many careers that people just don't even understand or know about at this point in time. And as technology and exponential technology continues to advance, you know, there are going to be careers out there in the next year that don't exist today. So be open.
And I'll jump in and really enjoy the conversation here from all the panelists, and Kathy, thanks for asking the questions. This has been great. If I were to go back to my grade 9 self, I would I'd give myself a hug, because I miss hugs during COVID. But in all seriousness, I would probably I'd probably say, you know, to just take my time. And as much as it feels like there was a rush to, you know, make the world a better place or contribute to causes that I cared about that were part of my own lived experience around mental health and around hip hop in the community, what I was sort of driven to do, I was always moving so fast that also eventually impacted my own mental health. And if I can go back to my grade 9 self, I would just say, keep it up, but slow down, you know, and you're still going to get all the things done and, you know, contribute in the ways that you want to contribute and learn the things you want to learn, but try to find ways to take care of myself along the way, because it was something I was pretty bad at for 15 years in my career at Unity, and only now I'm starting to reflect on, you know, how do I be productive, make an impact, contribute to something that I can make a difference in, while also, you know, paying the bills, but also taking care of myself, which is usually the last thing that we think about. And it's the last thing that I thought about as a young person. So I wish I could just, you know, hug myself, tap myself on the shoulder and say, hey, check this out. This is you in 15 years from now, and you could have had more hair if you took it a little bit slower.
Thank you everyone. That was really great. That was really great advice. And we have time for another question. So what are the pros and cons to being an entrepreneur versus joining a big company?
I can jump in on this. I've actually worked for big companies and startups, and which are obviously a lot smaller. from my perspective, working in a small tech startup or an entrepreneurial role gives you the ability to do a lot of different things. It gives you a chance to explore, and it gives you the chance to actually make an impact, so you can see the effect of the work that you're doing. I found when I worked in a larger organization that my role was my role, and that's what I had to focus on, right? So it really didn't give me the outlet to be able to look at all of the different aspects of the things that I like to do from a career perspective that have ultimately led me to being a COO, where I get to be in charge of human resources and marketing and sales and have an impact and oversight into the financials of the organization, right? So in a larger organization, you just don't get to do all of those things.
And I could just jump in and say, you know, I think one of the things that media accidentally does is glamorize entrepreneurship. So, you know, I've been an entrepreneur since I started my career path, and I think the only kind of more normal kind of job that I had lasted about 2 weeks before I kind of just realized it wasn't for me. And, you know, I think that the caveat there are a lot of amazing things about entrepreneurship. And I think that if you have an idea, you know, and you think you could contribute to making the world better, or doing something that, you know, just totally inspires you, you should totally follow that. But it's not an easy job. And I think that's the one thing that people often think, like, oh, they see these magazines with these successful CEOs and like, oh, wow, it's going to be like this huge thing with yachts and parties, and like it's the last thing that entrepreneurship is. Yes, there are awesome highs, but there are so many lows and so many days that are difficult. And so knowing that when you jump into it and having kind of the grit to keep going, I think, you know, you have to be comfortable with risk and uncertainty and facing really big highs and big lows. And I think that's the difference for me. You know, when you work kind of for someone or for a larger company, you can still be an entrepreneur. But I think that you're steady, you're kind of on a ship that someone probably is driving, and you can kind of focus on your role. With entrepreneurship, you have to basically do everything. And if things don't go right, it's really on you. So it's a totally different game.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that, and all the things that have been said. I would just add to what's been said so far around, you know, we always think the grass is greener on the other side, and I think whether I was working at a company or building my own nonprofit or building my own consulting company or writing this book, it's all been just doing the work, you know, showing up every day and doing a little bit and adding, like I use the metaphor of a house, you know, like I'm putting in one brick at a time every single day, and, you know, try not to expect more of myself. And at the end of it, this beautiful thing was built. But, you know, I don't really look at entrepreneurship or the workforce as, you know, I don't look down the road so far, and that's been a challenge of mine. I just try to do one thing each day to contribute to the bigger vision of what I had set out to do, and that's what led to building this great organization that we had. And, you know, so I think there's different styles of entrepreneur and building things, and I think that, you know, adding your personality to whatever you do, in whatever ways your company allows you to do that, and hopefully they do allow you to do that in some ways, or you can express and be yourself, because I think that's what's really important, is that you feel like you're part of a community, a team, a place that cares about you. And that's something that we strive to create at Unity when we built the organization. And that's something that I strive to be a part of now when I'm part of other organizations, is a team that really cares about me. Because, you know, if I'm lucky enough to have a job, then 1/3 of my waking hours I'm spending at work. So I might as well make that a good place to be. And I contribute to that as well, right? Like if I show up and, you know, I'm causing a whole bunch of stuff in the office that's not positive, that's on me too. So I take responsibility for making work an amazing place to be, no matter if I'm, I was selling cell phones at one point, or building my own organization, and both of those two things, I was able to bring that joy into work, and I created it myself and brought that to my colleagues, and it becomes reciprocal. But also the opposite can become reciprocal, where people are, bad energy is floating, and that's also quite contagious. So how do we create awesome places to work, no matter where it is that we're working, whether it's full-time, part-time, contract, it doesn't matter what it is, but I strive to enjoy myself at work because it's a big part of my waking hours.
Thank you everyone for your insightful responses. That wraps up our time today. Thank you so much for your participation, and big thanks to our panelists. The recording of this session will be available later today on the Learning Partnerships YouTube page, and you'll receive it along with a survey link via email tomorrow. And don't forget to fill out our survey for your chance at winning a Sport Check gift card. Thanks again, and have a great Take Our Kids to Work day.